Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Greene shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And this is it. This is one of my favorite shows that I've ever done. It's a solo show, so I'm not playing favorites because it's about the topic. You're going to hear about it soon, but this one is really, really close to why I started the podcast and what my future goals for this brand, which is trademarked, Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. This is about where it's going. Let's get to it right now. This is episode 344 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And this is a solo episode, how to talk to your kids about real estate investing. And when I'm talking about that, it's really about money, and it goes back to my background. I was extremely fortunate to grow up with a dad who was always talking about money, real estate, what to do with your life, mindfulness principles that I don't think he even knew existed. He was really an OG of real estate investing, walking foreclosures, taking me to pick up landlord checks. I really did it all. Watched him renovate houses. We did a ton of live-in flips. It was just a very interesting childhood for me, and I was only with my dad on the weekend. I lived with my mom in Brooklyn during the week, which was great. And then every Friday, my dad would be waiting for me outside of my school in Brooklyn Heights, take me to Westchester. And I've talked about this as a guest on a lot of podcasts. And the interesting thing, and the reason why I know so much about real estate started with those car rides. You have to remember this is, early 1970s. There are no devices. I have nothing to do. I think I had that electronic football and baseball, which are just like dots on a screen. And he wouldn't, I'd get sick if I played it in the car. So basically driving in the car, for the hour 15, hour and a half with traffic was just me and my dad talking. And most of the weekend, we were driving around, going to Caldor, going to yard sales, looking at abandoned bulldozers and just weird stuff, playing sports. So while we're in the car, we're always talking. And when my kids were younger, they had devices, when it was appropriate. So they were kind of always preoccupied with stuff in the car. And as many parents know, this is really a show for parents. You're kind of trying to talk to your kids and impart these life lessons, but also they have Fruit Ninja and we didn't have Fruit Ninja. So we're just up against a lot more now. My dad had a free open road to my brain because I couldn't get out of the car. I had nothing else to do. And all we did was just go. He mixed in a bunch of dirty jokes and things like that to keep me busy. Would peel oranges while he was driving, hand me the Planters peanuts. I mean, I can distinctly remember the smell of the oranges and the peanuts, and then of him talking and us driving. And it was always really fun for me. I mean, I never thought that I was, in class learning about real estate and money, but I was. I was constantly until he passed away when I was 33. So it really never stopped. And I'm making this episode because one great recommendation by Drew Brenneman, who's a friend of mine, and I'm invested in 3 syndications with him and Brenneman Capital. But he commented on one of my LinkedIn posts that he liked some of these solo episodes. I appreciate that. I hope you are enjoying them as well. But that would be good to get something like, the conversation with kids out there. This is it. And for anyone who doesn't know, I've only talked about it a little bit here and there. One of the long-term goals of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing is to open retail storefronts where we start educational activities for middle school to high school, trying to right now partner with the high school in my area and colleges to run their real estate clubs for them through my brokerage and through Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. But I envision a long term where we're opening retail shops that are educational outposts, and then potentially franchising those into markets. And really, it's to give kids the opportunity that I had. Not to say that parents aren't doing a good job teaching their kids about money and alternative options to invest in, but kids have more things to distract them. Schools definitely are not doing the job. All of us parents know that all too well. There's not any financial education going on in K through 12 at all. So I really feel like it's something that's going to always be important. And the reason why I focus on real estate and that I think anybody should focus on real estate as a foundation really goes to that word, foundation. When you're looking at everything out in the world and you go to whatever, you stop at McDonald's or you go to get your hair cut or you go into a medical building, all of those things have real estate under them. Hey, maybe you're even going to the park with your kids. Guess what? Somebody owns the real estate that's under the Jungle Gym. Somebody owns the real estate that's under the Burger King. Maybe it's Burger King, maybe it's Bob Smith, and he's got Burger King on a 40-year triple net lease. These are educational opportunities at every single turn while you're driving. And again, I know that because that's exactly what my dad did. I cannot tell you the number of times we were on vacation, me, my two stepbrothers, my half sister, my dad, my stepmom, probably a pet or two in the car. And we're just driving down a road, probably like in Florida. We used to go to Sanibel and Jupiter a lot. And he would just pull over. And I'm like, what are we doing? Does somebody say they have to go to the bathroom? No, it would just be like an abandoned strip mall. And he would be looking through the window, writing down, hey, give me a piece of paper. Like, I got to write this down. And he just, that's just who he was. He liked to engineer opportunities to buy stuff that could appreciate in value or it could result in something that's a long-term asset hold. And that's why he owned a lot of oddballs and I've owned a lot of oddballs because he left them to me and my sister after he passed away. And then we controlled a lot of the oddballs. Some were in my name, some were in hers, some we sold, most we sold by now. But real estate and understanding education is a gateway to money. So if you can start with something that is like real estate, which is tangible, you can see it, you can tell people there's a houses, these arenas, all the things that you're looking at, that's real estate, including the land underneath. I think it's very accessible for kids at any age. Also, there's a lot of, I'd say educational-ish video games that involve building houses. Even Club Penguin, you got to build and organize your house. I was super into The Sims, but right as my son was being born, so that was 2001, I was crushing The Sims and I really just like building the houses. Didn't really worry about the people, just let them not get sleep, pee themselves, whatever they do. But I was just constantly building houses. And I think you can look at Monopoly. Monopoly is a real estate game. Obviously, they have board game cash flow. They got cash flow for kids. But there's a lot of different ways that you can talk about real estate and understand. And then wherever you're living, whether you're living in a rental or you're living in a house that you own, living in a multifamily, there's always an opportunity, apartment building, always an opportunity to explain how that works, especially when it comes to mortgage. I grew up with, my dad was a cash investor. I really didn't understand about mortgage. He didn't talk to me about mortgages a lot. He was kind of, I guess, pre-Dave Ramsey, buy everything in cash, use cash to advance. But then as I got older, I was like, I like leverage. I'll try some leverage. I still don't enjoy it that much, but I think it's something that you want your kids to understand because there's a lot of things that you can buy on leverage, and that is also a credit card. So when you start with something that's tangible, like a house or a building that they can see or that they go to all the time, you're going to lead into conversations that relate to money. And I feel like kids just don't get money like they should. Again, I did just because my dad was so open about money, gave me a quote emergency credit card when I was 14 or 15, which I personally interpreted an emergency to be buying Air Jordans at a Foot Locker when I was 15. And I remember them calling my dad from the Foot Locker in California and being like, "Kenny, get this." And he begrudgingly said yes. But it was all part of, educating me about money. He also put money in a stock account, gave me a broker at Merrill Lynch well before I was 18, said, if you lose the money, it's okay, but take the advice of your broker, talk it out. And if there's stuff that you want to buy, you can. And I ended up doing a bunch of research on stocks. My whole life, I've always done very well on stocks. I'm not like a day trader type. I'm not trying to make like millions in my own account. I will put a lot in index funds, but I trade stocks. And I always do well. I'm always in the plus. I barely ever lost on a stock. And if I did, I took the loss on purpose to go into something else that turned into a gain. But I think these are important things. But, kids now, there's so many things. I still have a huge baseball card collection, a huge comic collection, which I'd like to sell. But that was another great opportunity for my dad to talk about money with me. When we would go look for Avengers #1, when we'd be on vacation, we would always find a comic book store and we'd find a baseball card store. And he liked that I invested in collectibles because they had the opportunity to make more. And every year when we would get the new pricing guide, I could show him like, hey, I've made, this at the time, I've made like $1 on my Ricky Henderson rookie card. And that was another level of conversation. Kids have Pokemon cards. They're super potential there to turn that into a business. Look at Gary Vee, all over the trading cards still going to yard sales. These are the things that I did growing up. And these are things that you can do with your kids. And part of the reason I want to open this kind of educational outlet for Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing is to open it up for kids and parents to work together. Or so a kid in middle school, they're not going home from school and saying, oh, we learned about this in history, because that was pretty boring. And unless they like history, then it's fine. But, usually it's us parents forcing what happened at school out of you. But if you're going to something after school that's optional and you're enjoying it, and then you come home and you want to talk about money and real estate, I just think it's a great way for families to connect and to understand and to teach kids to budget and to let them get an allowance no matter what it is and see how much they have left, and understand that if they get $5 a week, and they need $60 to get the new Zelda game, you got to spend none of it for 12 weeks. That's a math problem too. I was always really good at math because I was a statistical nerd and basically a sports statistics savant growing up. So I could calculate batting averages, free throw percentages, field goal percentages in my head all the way up to 100 shots. I knew them all because that's just kind of what I did. I created these leagues in my head. I know, sounds a little bit much, but this is me. If you don't know me that well, this is all part of the unusual makeup of me. But again, knowing statistics and knowing math helped me do well with money. There's a lot of times in your life where someone will try to slip one past you on some type of money thing. And if you're good at math, that's never going to happen. I've stopped it many times just from watching what people were trying to do, allegedly being a mistake, but it's not. I just think these things are important. And again, real estate being so tangible and visible in everybody's lives, it's just an open opportunity to discuss. And look, a lot of parents don't know what a triple net lease is. Wouldn't it be cool if you started to understand what's underneath everything? I think it would give people the opportunity to educate themselves about ownership more. Now, Cody Sanchez talks about ownership in the business space a lot, which I like. I also like the ownership aspect of real estate. And if you know that that's part of your goal, of course, it's a little bit harder now. Rates are high. House prices are generally high. People are waiting longer to buy homes. That doesn't mean that you can't buy investment properties, or that you can't invest in land or do things that cost less. There's so many asset classes out there and opportunities for people who are willing to take a little bit of risk, but some educated risk, and learn and not go down a guru spiral. Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this solo episode about how to talk to your kids about real estate investing. And if this is hitting home and you want to toss around some ideas, you can send me an email by going to zenandtheartofrealestateinvesting.com. Use the contact there. I am trying to work with some schools and investing groups to bring this to more of the forefront, to get to middle school, high school kids, even college kids, so they can start learning these things. And hey, it's really going to be for everybody because we want the kids to talk to their parents and we want to have an open dialogue about what real estate is and what real estate investing is. Let's get back to the show. You want to talk to your friends who invest. It's great conversation starters between you and your family, your extended family. Eventually you could partner up. You build a mini family office. There's just so many. I mean, just think of family offices. Can we just go through that term? Family office. I mean, how cool is that? Just that your own family could basically have an office that pools money to invest in real estate. That's pretty awesome. Of course, it's grown into something larger, but that's the original formation. I mean, I think I was in a family office growing up because my sister and I owned properties in trust with my dad and with other partners all the time growing up. I'm sure I owned 30, 40 properties before I was 18. He knew what he was doing tax-wise. He was shifting a lot of stuff in and through LLCs before it was easy, to just create one online. I was an investor early, and I was looking at my properties. I was seeing what work they needed. I was collecting the rent. We own commercial and residential, so I was looking at the opportunities in both. And I remember this time, I was definitely in my teens. I can't remember what house it was. I believe it was a mixed use because I remember like we were looking at some retail businesses on the bottom, but then he took me up to the top, and the top was just like a full through unit. And he's like, can you see here? And I'm like, oh, I would live here. This would be so cool, to live in. It's kind of just like a big open loft. And I still think I would still think that would be a cool place to live. You just hook up a bathroom and you kind of have a wide open space on top of something commercial. If there's a couple things down there, I was thinking as a kid, hey, if a deli's down there, I'm pretty all set. I don't even have to cook. We think differently as kids, and that's why it's important to put these information about real estate in front of kids to see what they do with it. I think they'll appreciate where they live more if they understand how much it costs to live there and what it takes to do a loan to get it. And that in America, we have the benefit of 30-year loans. So even though we're getting a $500,000 house, we're going to pay, $962,000, and they're going to be like, oh, that's crazy. And you're going to say, no, it's not that crazy because we only had to put down 50,000 instead of the whole 500,000. And now we're talking about banks, and that leads you to a conversation about getting a kid a bank account, which I think is very important. When I was younger, I remember going to the ATM. It was a Versa bank, so it was called VersaTeller in California. And my dad would put money in the bank for me, and I would put in allowance that I got or birthday gifts, and then it would get printed out on the bank book, and I would see my money grow. And that's how I got really into saving. And my dad was definitely a saver. I wouldn't call my dad cheap because he liked nice houses and nice cars, but yeah, everything else is pretty cheap didn't care about clothes, and even the slightest bit. Bought his clothes at Caldor, which is, basically just like a Kmart, but had super toys. So we went there all the time. But I remember looking at my bank book and watching it grow, and it got me almost like challenged me to save more. Like I want to get it as high as it goes. And I think that kids need to see that again. And I think they need to see it not on an app. The bank book, I don't even know if they exist anymore, but they were awesome. You old heads know what I'm talking about. It prints out, you put the bank book into the printer when you put the money in, and then it prints out what you just input, and then you have your total amount on there. It's just incredible. Sometimes we just need old school more. It's just, man, I just remember those days and remembering that I understood the value of money more than my friends did because it was an open arena of conversation at all times. And I think that's why I never became a big spender. It wasn't because I was cheap, but I don't necessarily really like nice things. My houses that I've lived in I live in nice houses, but I've never lived in like a super mansion of my own. I've lived in definitely some nice places. I like, flipping houses, but I don't see the value in having more rooms than I will use. I mean, arguably now, I have two kids that are adults. One lives in the back house over my garage, which is detached, and one lives in a house that I bought for her. But in my main house here, I have 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. So I mean, that's too much space. I'm using it well right now. I'm in my interior office now, as you can see in the background if you're watching. I have another room that is usually a guest room. It's now kind of like where I'm putting all my kid shit room, so I can sell a bunch of it, like stuff, cool stuff that they grew out of. And then I have a gym in another room. And that's how I make sure that I'm using all the space. And it's not a big house though. I mean, I have I have a decent sized yard, which I like. I'm just a very good house buyer, and I learned to be a good house buyer by going around with my dad, looking at houses, walking houses, understanding what adds value to a house and what I'm looking for. And I would love to be able to impart that. And more than that, I would love for you to be able to impart that to your kids and to make it something that you can talk about together. And then Monopoly becomes a whole different game when you really understand that it's about real estate and the houses and the hotels. I never, when I was a kid, if I wasn't with my dad, I don't think I ever played Monopoly thinking of it as a real estate game, because it was just a board game. But now if you put the lens on it of a real estate game, it's a lot different when you hit free parking or when you have to pay the taxes or, the other things that come up that are, real estate adjacent, and making sure that you get a monopoly and then you're able to put houses and hotels on there. It's just such an important thing for kids to learn that every place that they're ever going to live is a piece of real estate. It has value to someone, somebody owns it, and then you have a great conversation if you're renting. If you're a renter, which almost all of us have been at some point in our life, you have a conversation with your kids about, well, we're renting this. That means that somebody else owns it. We pay them X. They could also have a mortgage, so they may have to pay Y. And then there's the utilities. We pay this, we pay that. So their profit is X minus Y, with the utilities minus Z. These are math equations that kids will understand over time, especially if you make it just this open dialogue over the years about financial education, real estate. Cars are another great place to start. I mean, you can finance them. Cars are just basically like mini houses. You take a kind of mini mortgage on your car loans, but is that the greatest idea? No. You can buy a car used or you can buy it new. Value changes when you drive it off the lot. You can buy a house new. You can buy an old house. Old house might have a little bit more problems, a little bit more character. These are just cool conversations. If you're parents and you're listening, are you with me on this? Even if you don't, well, if you're listening to this podcast, you like real estate. Like, we can just get on with that. So this hopefully is really resonating. Talk to your kids about real estate. It doesn't matter where you go. Ice cream store. Guess what? Somebody's renting that business. Maybe they own the building. Mixed use properties. These are retail spaces. Hey, look up there on top of that. Those are apartments. That's the type of place that you may live when you're 20. When you're in college or when you're working, you may live in a smaller apartment that's something like this, where it's walkable. You can walk in the town. Now you're going through mixed use. I think that would be cool for a kid to understand that one person owns a building that has a laundromat, a deli, a Verizon store, and then on top, there's also 3 apartments. That I don't know. Is it just me, or that's pretty cool? I think it's cool. I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of me thinking back of the times I had with my dad, but I feel like it's a point of conversation that you can have literally anywhere where you're going. And it might be something that your kids start to appreciate off of their phones. And P.S., there's a bunch of games that involve houses that can also help you have better conversations. So maybe they want to play a game. There's real estate in pretty much every game. I told you, Club Penguin, real estate. I don't remember if Toontown had real estate for my kids, but I remember like my kids building sweet igloos in Club Penguin. That's a real estate game. They're getting furniture. In The Sims, you buy furniture. If you haven't played The Sims, by the way, just get it. It's one of the greatest games of all time. It's just so much fun, and it's a real estate game. It's also a personal connector game, which is, appropriate to real estate. But I just feel like if kids learn financial literacy, real estate, stock investing, how to make money, how to budget, they're just going to be way farther ahead. AI is coming for a lot of our stuff, but I don't think it's enough to say, hey, you know what? Our kids' generation, they're just going to plug everything into ChatGPT to tell them what to do. Just because I can use a calculator for more complicated calculations doesn't mean it doesn't hurt that I know what some of these percentages are. Like I just know 9 for 11 free throws, that's 82%. I mean, these are just things that I learned from just being a nerd, but I think it can really help kids. And again, the reason why it's so important is because there's nowhere you're going to look out in the world that doesn't involve real estate. Arguably highway, somebody owns it, probably the city. Rest stop, somebody owns that. Billboards are a great thing to talk about. Guess what? Somebody owns that land. Maybe they put up the thing that holds the billboard. Then they lease the billboard space to somebody else. These are very accessible conversations about things that later could help people make a lot of money and understand a lot more than their peers. And I think that's what we really want for our kids. Like my kids, they're 24 and 22. I'm trying even harder now because I think when kids are younger, you kind of get into that. You're in the show for years where you're driving them to all their stuff. And then sometimes you're tired. So you kind of appreciate they have devices. But the more that I think about all the times that I had with my mom and dad, and, in my generation, for people, I'm 55. So anybody who's like within my age range, we were talking in the car. We're probably like playing weird games, the games where you try to see all the car brands. That's fun. I mean, I would still like doing that. And that's, just part of what you can see out there. And that's why I think, going to yard sales, great opportunity for real estate, great opportunity for barter and trading. Again, that's a Gary Vee thing. My dad was also a big barterer. And if you've never bartered, yard sales are the place to do it. Or you can barter your services. My dad was a lawyer, as was I. I never bartered my services. I like to get paid. My dad bartered his services. He would do a bunch of wills, and then he would take an estate's entire art collection. I have a bunch of books downstairs. 100% he bartered those. There's a 0% chance he would ever buy that stuff. The dude would just barter everything. Oh, you need a will? I'm great at wills. I have enough money. I don't really need money. I want something that's different. Is there something that you can trade? Oh, you have a tractor you want to get rid of? I'll take the tractor. How many things legally do you need to trade for the tractor? That was my weekend life growing up. I would come home from, I'd go back to my mom during the week, and I come back, and then there's a bulldozer in the yard. Oh, cool. What the fuck are you doing now with the bulldozer? Oh, I'm building a golf hole in the backyard. I'm like, how do you know how to build a golf hole? How do you even know how to use a bulldozer? He's like, oh, talk to my friends. I figured it out. I would watch my dad use a bulldozer and a crane in the backyard. Was that dangerous in retrospect? Yep, probably lucky I didn't get run over by one of those machines. But yeah, one of our houses had, I think, 2 or 3 holes in the backyard. This is just the stuff that he did. He and again, if you're just thinking about this now, going back on the things that I'm talking about, just think about this. What do you see at short-term rentals now? Putt-putt, 3-hole miniature golf. My dad was so ahead of his time in everything that he did. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I don't even know if he ever listened to like Carlton Sheets, but he probably did. But like he was building amenities at houses before that was a thing. And because again, I always stayed in short-term rentals. They were really more timeshares, but we stayed in short-term rentals in Florida all the time because we would go for a long time. So in places like Sanibel and Jupiter, we stayed in the same short-term rentals every year before they were called short-term rentals. They were modified timeshares, but we bought into some timeshares too. I used to own a timeshare in St. Martin, and then just got blew away. But I think that St. Martin deal, I think we paid $20,000 for our share of this like beachfront place in St. Martin. I went there personally, I think 2 or 3 times. I don't even know if my dad used it, but then we rented, got rented out as part to the others. But I got the usage out of it before it blew away, and there was really no insurance on it. But that's finding weird stuff. It's just like people, again, like Drew Brenneman, who gave me the idea to do this. If you go back and listen to his first episode of the podcast, he's been on twice. He was an eBay guy. Reselling stuff on eBay and Facebook Marketplace is a great way to learn about money. It's fantastic. I love it. I'm trying to get my kids to do it more. My daughter has sold a crap ton on Depop and the other sites. And I'm going to sell a bunch of their old stuff on those sites as well. I sold a bunch on Poshmark myself. I just think tradability, tangibility is important. And that's what I really want to lean into as I grow Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. I just see it as more than a podcast. I love the conversations that I have. I love having the opportunity like this to talk to you directly about my experience and to hopefully give you. And this one really is like, I'm really pushing you to like talk about real estate and money with your kids tonight, today. Broach the subject. It's probably involved in a quarter of their video games. I mean, even in all the games, you're always buying stuff. You have to earn money, sometimes from boosting liquor stores like in Grand Theft Auto to buy stuff. But yeah, even in Grand Theft Auto, you can buy a bunch of stuff and you can buy real estate. There's real estate involved in so much more than you think. And when you go out in the world later today or during the day or while you're listening to this driving, you just take a look out the window, real estate, real estate, real estate. Every single thing that you see is real estate. It's absolutely amazing. And you're missing out if it's not something that you're learning about, talking about, and relaying to your kids so that they can get ahead of the curve. This is how you teach your kids about real estate investing. I really hope this resonates with you, and I hope it's an important point in the growth of this podcast into where I want to go the end of this year, 2027, and beyond. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. See you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on episode 345 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one who listens all the way till the end of the episode. Anyway, my guest is Amanda Cruz. She's the co-host of the Best Ever CRE podcast with Ash Patel, also a former guest. She's also the founder of Voyage Investing, and this is a manufactured homes, aka mobile home, park episode. We go through so much cool stuff on this. We're talking better returns, value add opportunities, scarcity in the business, and affordable housing, and more next episode with Amanda.